Safe ice. Ah, wow.
Ooh, you're talking to a guy who's been through the ice a couple times. So, and you know, as a 200+ pounder, I'm a little more leery and smarter than I used to be. I like 3 to 4 minimum for walking out. If I'm going to drive out, I'm looking for about 8.
I'm supposed to tell you no ice is safe. And from there, I may venture out on about 5 to 7 cranks of my laser hand auger. That's about my comfort zone. Anything less than that, I'm back to where it was 5 or 7 cranks to get through.
What does that usually end up being, like 3 inches or something?
Yeah, maybe 2.5 to 3 inches.
Well, it's walking with a chisel in my hand and hitting the ice in front of me at every step, and you hit the chisel again and take another step, and you just walk and hit like that. If the chisel don't go through, I keep on going. You know, and if it does go through, then I don't hit quite so hard the next time because I don't really want to stop. But you know, if you do that and check the ice when you're walking and don't just walk out there.
As I've gotten older, I've gotten way more conservative with safe ice. Now I consider safe ice a good solid 3 inches. Solid 3 inches across the board, not, hey, there's a little bit of water over here, or there's a little bit of white over here. Like solid 3, whether that's 6 inches total with, you know, a hard 3 on the bottom or top, vice versa, just solid 3 inches for walking only. That's what I would consider safe.
I like 4 inches of ice. I'll tell you the truth. If I'm on 4 inches of ice, I can be on 2 inches on the far end of a pond or something and feel, okay, it's a little dicey here. You know, I'll knock my pick or my chisel through it, and I'm like, well, most of the rest is 4. I'm a little more comfortable. I'm not the guy that's creeping out on 2 and 2.5 because on that same body of water, there's 1 inch somewhere.
I like 4 inches of ice because there's no chance of making a mistake. And even if there's a little bit of snow on the ice, it insulates it so much. For instance, I was just out and there was 4.25, 4.5 inches of ice unilaterally on a lake. But in the small snow drifts where there's 2 inches of snow, there was 3. And I'm a bigger guy, and there are people who go out on 2 or 3 inches, but I'm not going to tell the general public to go out on 4. I can read ice, I know what it looks like. Hard black ice, 4 inches is perfect. And if I get 6, I'll take a light machine like a snowmobile or a small 4-wheeler. And then if I get 8 or 9 inches of ice, then you can bring a little larger machine. But I drill and I check the whole way. And I measure it. So if I go out on a lake and I'm out 4 miles, I walk the whole way, then I'll drill ahead. For instance, before I pull out a hard house, if we have a foot of ice, I will drill the whole way and then just wave someone up in the vehicle. Then I can drive back.
I can think of one time my friend Rick and I were on a lake. It was snowing like heck that day, and we chipped our way out there, and you know, it was 2.5 inches of ice, I suppose, you know, enough to hold you up. And we finally got over to 30 feet of water where we wanted to get. And all of a sudden I hear something, and I flip open my fish trap, and here's a guy walking with a 3-horse Jiffy auger over his shoulder, walked right on by us out onto the lake, started the auger up, and boom, it fell right through. He just went back to shore. He didn't even stay. You know, yeah, but he had no business just assuming just because we were out there.
You know, I don't usually put it on an inches mark. You know, every lake's different. I've been out on plenty of safe ice where it's 9 and 10 inches of ice, but it's wide open in the middle of Mille Lacs Lake. You get a slight wind and that cracks off, and next thing you know, they're rescuing people. So I like to go out when it's calm. When you get, you know, 5, 6, 7 inches underneath my feet, I like to have a little breathing room. I used to have to be the first one out there. I don't feel that need anymore. You know, it only takes a day or 2 longer to have really good, safe ice instead of risky ice. And so now I play it safe. Of course, I always wear my float suit, my striker ice suit.
You know, safe ice can be relative. You know, obviously the old adage, if you look at the book, is 3 inches of good clear ice to walk on. You know, but what I warn or remind people is that there's no room for error when you have 3 inches of ice. And so I've been in situations where there's good 3 inches of ice, and all of a sudden there's this patch where there was 50 Canada geese sitting there 2 weeks ago that you don't know about. And all of a sudden you've got a patch that's a 1/2 inch, you know, or there's, current, whatever it is. And so, yeah, you can be safe on 3 inches, but you better be really sure what you're on. And so, the big thing is just having a spud bar, one whack, and that spud bar and water's coming up, you better be backing up. And if you have 2 whacks, it's typically 2 inches, 3 whacks is 3 inches. And so that's just a general thumb for walking. That way you can pick your way across stuff. Because even like Great Lakes, there's a lot of places, reservoirs, river systems, where you can have 6 inches of ice and take 1 step into 2 inches of ice. And so you really have to be careful, and then with like the float suits and everything, having a throw rope, there's a lot of things that you can do to increase the odds of being safe. That being said, 6-7 inches is plenty for a side-by-side or an ATV, a snowmobile, and then 12 inches for a vehicle.
If I'm walking out, personally I need a minimum of 4 to 5 inches. And I'm going to stay fairly close to shore, and I'm not going to fish in main lake areas where I know there was any deep water. And it doesn't matter if I'm on a big lake or in a small lake. There's good fishing to be had in a lot of the bays of like the lakes in northern Wisconsin where I'm from. And I'll usually start there first, fish the deep edges of the weeds and kind of limit myself to 15 feet of water and less. And I don't know if you hear that very often from an ice fisherman, but those are the areas that freeze first and are the safest in most cases, unless there's springs.
I'm one of the guys who's going to err on the cautious side. I actually tell guys that I'll go out in fairly thin ice, maybe 4 inches is fairly thin for me. But my first question is, will it hold my snowmobile? Because if it'll hold my snowmobile, I know it'll hold me. So I'm pretty cautious about that. I do take precautions. I do wear like a float suit, and I do have like a nebulous on my sled. So if it is a little skinny in some places, I'm protected. But I like a little bit of ice.
Safe ice for what? For walking, I would say 4 inches. After that, you got 6 to 7 for wheelers, and probably up to 8 for snowmobiles. And the only reason I say up to 8 is because they're getting heavier. I use a spud when I'm walking out, and I hit it, and I've got a deal. If I hit it 3 times, then I'm good, I keep walking. If I hit it twice and it goes through, I back up. That's just the way I do it.
I look at safe ice as being 5-6 inches. That's really where and that part has gotten thicker. As I've gotten older, it's definitely gotten thicker, because there was a time that I really found myself pushing the limits and in positions that I look back on and think that was just young and really dumb. So the couple things that I do now more than I ever did in the past is, one, I wear a life jacket religiously in the early section of the ice period, and I am chiseling and drilling a lot, like every 25-30 meters for the most part, as I get out onto a body of water.
And now using a float coat, life jacket, yes, we wore them, but you go out there without them a lot of times. But now these new, the Rise float coat, you're comfortable with it on, and you have the security of floating if you did fall through the ice.
I really, and my opinion has changed the older I've gotten, okay? And that's real simple, because when you're young, you think, hey, early ice, it's clear ice, I can go out there with a spud bar and go through with 1 or 2 spuds, and that's good enough for me, and I'm a risk taker and this and that, and I had a lot of that mentality. But when you get older and you have a family and have a lot more responsibilities in life, early ice to me is more about 4 inches of good clear ice. And for me, it's gonna take at least 3 good spuds of not even be able to go through where I feel comfortable. You'll see guys driving even an ATV out there, and as a professional fishing guide, I'm not even gonna take a chance of risking going out there on anything less than 4 or 5 inches of good clear ice. So that's my suggestion for anyone that's really looking to go out there. Hey, there is no fish that's worth, dying for. And it happens every year in our sport.
At the end of the day, I think, you can't go wrong with erring on the side of caution, because we're going to have plenty of winter. So.